3 years ago, my parents told an entire town I was mentally dangerous. Last Tuesday, I sat in their lawyer's conference room. My father needed one signature, one page, to unlock $3.8 million. I read it. Then I laughed so hard the lawyer stood up and asked if I needed medical attention. My father's face went completely white. Because Grandpa hadn't just left me the lake house. He had been protecting me for 14 years, and nobody in that room knew it, except me. My name is Claire Harmon. I'm 34 years old. I grew up in Mill Haven, Georgia, a town small enough that your business was everyone's religion. My father, Robert, managed the local credit union for 22 years. Pressed shirts, firm handshakes, the kind of man who made other men feel reassured just by standing near him. My mother, Patricia, organized the church fundraisers and the school bake sales and every charitable event that would put her name on a program. Together, they looked like a Hallmark movie. And then there was Sophia, my younger sister by 4 years. Sophia got the car at 16. I got the bus schedule. Sophia got the bigger bedroom because she needed space for her art supplies. I shared a wall with the water heater and learned to study through the sound of pipes. My father had one sentence he used every time I brought this up. He'd set down his fork, look at me like I was being unreasonable, and say, "Sophia needs more help. You're the capable one, Claire. That's what I love about you." I was 19 before I understood that capable in my father's vocabulary meant she won't complain. I was the first person in my family to graduate university. Finance degree. 4 years. Working 30 hours a week at an accounting firm the entire time. No cosigner, no help. Just me and a 5 a.m. alarm clock. My parents said they would come to graduation. My mother bought a new dress. My father asked which gate to park at. I reserved 4 seats, 2 for them, 1 for Sophia, 1 for Grandpa Howard, the only person who had never once made me feel invisible. Graduation morning, 7:03 a.m. My phone rang. "Something came up," my father said. "Sophia is moving into her new apartment and the elevator's broken." I stood in my dorm room holding a pressed blouse. I could hear my mother in the background asking where the tape gun was. "It's just a ceremony," she called out. "You already have the degree, honey." I walked across that stage alone, sat in a row of strangers, took my own photo using my phone propped against a bench. That afternoon, my phone rang again. It was Grandpa Howard. His voice was rough around the edges, the way it always got when he was trying not to cry. "I'm proud of you, Claire," he said. "Don't worry, I already took care of it." I thought he meant a card, maybe a check. I wouldn't understand what he meant for another 9 years. I met James Whitfield when I was 27. He was a contractor, licensed, running his own company out of a truck with his name on the door. He brought me wildflowers from a gas station on our second date because the florist was closed and he refused to show up empty-handed. We got married when I was 29. Small ceremony, courthouse steps. Grandpa Howard had passed 2 years before. I still felt the hole he left every time something good happened and I couldn't call him. My parents came to the wedding, briefly. At dinner the following week, my father looked at James across the roast chicken, with the calm of a man who has never once questioned his own judgment. He said, "I thought you'd aim higher, Claire. A contractor. That's a downgrade." My mother pressed her lips together. Sophia scrolled her phone. James didn't flinch. On the drive home, he stared at the road and said, "I don't need your father to respect my job, but I need him to respect you." It happened at Christmas. 20 people, my parents' living room. Sophia pulled me into the kitchen. She needed $8,000. 4th time she'd asked. 3 previous amounts still unpaid. She said it was for inventory, a boutique she was opening. I said no, calmly, clearly. She walked back into the living room with wet eyes. My father stood up from his chair like he'd been spring-loaded. "What kind of sister refuses her own family?" He said it loud enough for all 20 people to hear. Then my mother leaned toward my aunt. Conspiratorial, just loud enough. "She's been like this since she married that man. Honestly, I think she's dangerous. She needs to be evaluated." 20 people. Not one opened their mouth. I put on my coat, kissed my cousin's baby on the forehead. James was already at the door, keys in hand, jaw tight. I walked out of that house for the last time. Within weeks, my parents had a story, and they told it to everyone. Claire is mentally unstable. Her husband is controlling her. She needs professional help. My father called my former employer. In a town that small, a call like that isn't concern. It's a grenade with a polite fuse. One by one, the calls from family stopped. The circle pulled tight around Robert and Patricia, and I was on the outside of it. 3 years passed. Then on a Tuesday in March, an envelope arrived with a law firm's return address. It sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I opened it. The letter was from a Mr. Dalton, attorney at law, based in Millhaven. 1 page, clean font, professional letterhead. My father was initiating the sale of a residential property, Grandpa Howard's Lakehouse, 14 Cedarwood Mill Road, and as a potential heir to the estate of Howard Harmon. I was being asked to sign a quitclaim deed, waiving any claim to the property. There was a 30-day deadline, a signature line with my name, and a number for Dalton's office. I read it 3 times. 3 years of silence, not a birthday text, not a how are you. And the first contact from my family in 3 years came through a law firm, asking me to hand over the last thing Grandpa Howard ever touched. I set the letter down and looked at the small cedar tackle box on the shelf above the stove. Brass hinges, his initials carved into the lid. James had built the shelf himself. Inside the tackle box, tucked against the bottom, was a sealed envelope I had kept for 9 years. Yellowed paper, taped shut, his handwriting on the front. For Claire, when you need it. I had never opened it. I thought it was a goodbye letter. That night, for the first time in 9 years, I opened Grandpa Howard's envelope. Inside were 2 things. The first was a legal document, heavy paper, stamped and notarized. The heading read, Irrevocable Trust Deed. Howard R. Harmon Family Trust. The property at 14 Cedarwood Mill Road was held in irrevocable trust. The trustee was a Mr. Garrison, Grandpa Howard's personal attorney. The sole beneficiary was listed on page 3, Claire Ellen Harmon. The second item was a single sheet of notebook paper, folded twice, his handwriting, slanted, deliberate. Claire, I know your father. He means well, but he has never once seen you clearly. This house is yours. It has always been yours. I put $3.8 million in the trust, not just the house, the accounts too. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Grandpa H. I sat on the bedroom floor with my back against the dresser, and I cried. Not the kind of crying that breaks you apart, the kind that puts something back together. He knew, before the Christmas dinner, before James, before any of it. Grandpa Howard saw everything, and he didn't just feel sorry for me. He built a legal fortress around me, 14 years ago. The next morning I called Mr. Garrison. He answered on the second ring. The trust is valid, he said. Active and unchallenged. Your father's name does not appear anywhere in the documents. The $3.8 million has been growing in the trust account since 2011. It belongs entirely to you. I called Dalton's office. I'd like to come in before I sign. I have questions. Friday at 10 a.m. Friday works. I spent 5 days preparing, not emotionally. I was past that. I prepared the way a financial analyst prepares for an audit. Documents in rows, facts verified, nothing left to assumption. My cousin Rachel called Thursday night. Claire, I need to tell you something. Your dad has been calling everyone. Sophia's boutique is collapsing. He co-signed everything. He refinanced your parents' house, put the money into her store. Now the loans are due. He owes the bank $340,000 on his personal guarantee. The lakehouse sale was going to cover it, and the only thing standing between him and that money is your signature. Claire, he told everyone you'd sign. He said you had no use for that house anyway. I stared at the dark tree line beyond our backyard. Thank you for telling me, Rachel. What are you going to do? I'm going to that meeting. Friday came. I put Grandpa Howard's tackle box on the passenger seat, the trust documents in my bag, and I drove 45 minutes back to the town I'd left behind. Dalton's office, 2nd floor, red brick building on Main Street. The receptionist looked me up and down when I gave my name. I sat in a vinyl chair, opened my bag, checked the folder one last time. Trust deed, certified copy, county filing receipt, Garrison's card with his direct number circled, Grandpa Howard's handwritten letter sealed in a clear sleeve, everything accounted for. Dalton called my name, mid-50s, silver at the temples, the kind of man who says let's get this squared away and expects it to happen. I walked through the door, and there, sitting at the far end of the conference table, in a pressed shirt, hands folded, was my father. Same jaw, same posture, same way of holding a room like he'd already measured it. Hello, Claire. His voice was calm, gentle, the concerned father register, pitched just low enough to sound caring, just controlled enough to remind you who's in charge. I sat down, placed my folder on the table, did not open it. Robert leaned forward. Sweetheart, let's get this done quickly. I know you're busy. This is just about the property. Your grandfather would have wanted this. He used Grandpa Howard's name to try to move me out of the one thing Grandpa Howard built to protect me. My fingers rested on the edge of the folder. Before I do anything, I'd like to understand something. Robert clicked into sales mode. The house has been sitting empty for years. Nobody's using it. I have a buyer ready at $320,000. Your sister's business needs a bridge, and this solves everything clean. His phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it, held up one finger, answered. The speaker wasn't on, but in a room that quiet, you didn't need it. Sophia's voice came through sharp and thin. Dad, did she sign yet? I need to know by Monday. The landlord is threatening to change the locks. Robert cupped his hand over the phone. I'm handling it. But Sophia was already mid-sentence. Just tell her it's for the family. She always folds when you say that. The words landed in the center of that table like a match on gasoline. She always folds when you say that. Robert ended the call. His neck flushed red from the collar up. Dalton was looking at his legal pad. I folded my hands. She always folds when you say that. Word for word. Robert set his phone face down. I looked at Dalton. Before we continue, I have something I'd like to show you. I opened the folder, and I set the first page, face up on the table. The document slid across the mahogany, with the soft hiss of good paper on polished wood. The bold header was impossible to miss. Irrevocable Trust. Deed Howard R. Harmon Family Trust, Total Trust Assets. $3,847,000. Robert's head tilted. What is this? This is an irrevocable trust deed filed 14 years ago by Howard Harmon with the county clerk's office. It names me, Claire Ellen Harmon, as sole beneficiary of the lakehouse and $3.8 million in trust accounts. The trustee is Mr. Garrison, Grandpa Howard's personal attorney. You're welcome to read it. The silence that followed had physical weight. Robert didn't touch the papers, but Dalton did. He turned to page 1. Read it. Page 2. Page 3. He removed his glasses, pressed the bridge of his nose, set the document down very carefully, and looked at my father, the way a surgeon looks at an X-ray when the break is worse than expected. I called Garrison on the conference room speaker. He answered on the second ring. The trust is valid, he said. Executed and filed 14 years ago. The property and all associated accounts belong entirely to Claire Harmon. They have never been part of Howard Harmon's estate. They did not pass through probate. Robert Harmon's name does not appear in any document. Not once, Dalton wrote quickly. Robert sat motionless, his mouth opened, closed, opened again. That's impossible. He was my father. It came to me through probate. That's how it works. Dalton set his pen down. Mr. Harmon, according to this document, the property and the trust accounts were transferred 14 years before your father passed, which means they were excluded from the estate entirely. And if you have represented to a buyer that you hold clear title to this property, that could create a separate and significant legal issue. Robert pushed back from the table. You planned this. You've been sitting on $3.8 million for years, just waiting. I didn't plan anything. My voice didn't rise. I didn't open that envelope until your lawyer sent me a letter. You brought me here. Dad. The word landed heavier than I expected. For both of us. Robert pressed the heels of his hands into his eyes. When he pulled them away, he looked old, not just tired, diminished, like someone had pulled one thread, and the entire pattern was unraveling. Paige, if I can't access that money, Sophia loses everything. Your mother and I could lose the house. Our house. I heard the desperation. I did. And part of me, the part that spent 18 years trying to earn his attention, wanted to reach across the table, but I stayed where I was. You co-signed Sophia's loans. You refinanced your mortgage for her store. You put everything on the line for her. And in all of that time, you never once, not once, called to ask how I was doing. Robert's mouth opened, but nothing came out. And now you want me to hand over the one thing Grandpa Howard spent 14 years protecting. So you can fix a problem. I was not part of creating. I stood, collected the trust documents, placed them back in my folder. The quitclaim deed still sat in the center of the table, unsigned, like a check that bounced. I stopped at the door. You know my number. It hasn't changed. I walked through the lobby, down the stairwell, out the front door, into the Georgia Spring. I sat in my car for 5 minutes, engine off, hands on the wheel. I didn't feel victorious. I felt the particular exhaustion of someone who has finally stopped carrying something that was never theirs to carry. 3 months later, Sophia's boutique closed, 40 cents on the dollar to a liquidator. Robert's personal guarantee came due. He sold his truck, the one he'd driven since I was in high school, and pulled from his retirement early, eating the penalty. His retirement, which he had planned for 62, got pushed to 68, maybe later. In a town that size, the story traveled, through driveways and church parking lots and the frozen food aisle. People started asking questions Robert couldn't deflect with a firm handshake. Why didn't he know about his own father's trust? Did Howard really protect Claire all along? And that daughter they called unstable. She had $3.8 million in a trust the whole time. I didn't celebrate. There is no satisfaction in watching your father shrink. There's just the truth, and the silence that follows it. I went to the lakehouse on a Thursday afternoon. The front door was unlocked, the kitchen was clean. On the table, a single key and a torn piece of lined paper. Robert's handwriting, smaller than I remembered. This was never about the money. Dad. I read it, folded it, put it in my pocket. I walked down to the dock, sat in Grandpa Howard's green Adirondack chair, the one I helped sand when I was 10. The lake was still. A heron crossed the cove, low and unhurried, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt exactly where I was supposed to be. He didn't leave me a house. He didn't leave me $3.8 million. He left me proof that I mattered, that someone in my family saw me clearly, not as the capable one, not as the low-maintenance one, but as Claire, his granddaughter, worth protecting, for 14 years, before I ever needed it. My name is Claire Harmon. I'm 34 years old. 3 years ago, my parents' lawyer sent me one document. That document didn't give me anything I didn't already have. It just reminded me that someone had already decided I was worth protecting. And that was enough. If you could write one letter to the person who underestimated you, what would it say? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one.